Right before their wedding ceremony, bride passes out after groom's secret was revealed. Maggie and Caleb were madly in love and knew in their hearts that the time had finally come for them to get married. They'd planned the special event for months and had carefully thought of every detail. They wanted their day to be perfect. But little did they know nothing could have prepared them for a surprise that would cause Maggie to faint at the altar. Although they'd been through a lot together, they never expected this. When you think of a disaster at a wedding, you'd probably imagine a difficult guest or a problem with the band. But having your husband-to-be whisper a secret in your ear that causes you to swoon is something nobody, least of all Maggie, could have anticipated. And to boot, the videographer had caught the entire incident on film for everyone to see. It wasn't long before the video was making its rounds on social media. Maggie and Caleb had known each other since attending the same high school in Asheville, North Carolina. They had mutual friends as well, so the two ending up together seemed to be the work of fate. The thought of dating Caleb had crossed Maggie's mind before, but she never thought that it would ever happen. On the day of their wedding, however, Maggie found something out about Caleb that she didn't know quite how to deal with. When Maggie and Caleb had completed high school, however, the pair began to see each other differently. Maturity had changed their priorities and something had changed, but neither of the pair could pinpoint exactly what or where, but both Caleb and Maggie knew they wanted more. After deciding to date, they knew that it was worth the wait and it was what they both wanted all along. Maggie and Caleb had both been diligent students at school and they were both working towards their own goals. They supported each other, encouraging the other to reach the goals that they'd set for themselves. Caleb desperately wanted to be a Marine and nothing would stand in his way, but what the unsuspecting pair never anticipated was that in time, they would become a lot more than just friends, and soon they'd be internet famous. It was only in 2013, however, that the pair eventually gave in to their own growing feelings towards one another. When they started dating officially, their families weren't the least surprised. As the relationship grew from strength to strength, Caleb and Maggie were ecstatic, and it wouldn't be long before they decided to take the relationship to the next level. Caleb had no doubt in his mind that he wanted to spend his life with Maggie. He knew that she was the love of his life, so the only thing left to do was tell her how he felt. He visited a jewelry store and picked out the perfect engagement ring. Even though they were young, Caleb knew that Maggie was the only woman for him, but did Maggie feel the same way? After asking Maggie's parents for permission, all he needed to do now was pop the big question, and when the day arrived, he felt his heart race as he asked Maggie to be his bride and took the ring out from his pocket. It seemed like an eternity waiting for her answer, but she said yes. At the time, Caleb and Maggie were only 22 years old, but they knew that their love would be enough to overcome any obstacles that came their way. Although Maggie was usually unflappable, the stress of planning the wedding began to take its toll, and Caleb began to worry too. All the preparations were a lot more than they'd been expecting and took far more time than they initially imagined. They found that they were spending less time together and it put a strain on their relationship, but would it all be worth it? The couple was struggling to manage their time, juggling their busy careers and the wedding preparations. Nevertheless, the pair was determined to make it work. And the fact that Caleb and Maggie shared the same religious views eased some of the burden. They both had faith that God would guide them through this difficult time in their lives, but they had no idea what exactly He had planned for them. Luckily, the pair was accustomed to difficult times, so they remained steadfast in their decision. In Caleb's eyes, he finally had the love of an incredible woman, and he was prepared to do anything to keep her. He often thanked his lucky stars that Maggie was in his life, and just as he had done in high school, he vowed to support, protect, and encourage her for the rest of his life. Despite their age, Caleb and Maggie were very mature. Maggie attributes this to having to hold down the fort while Caleb was away. He was often out serving his country. He'd achieved his dream of becoming a Marine. However, as honorable as his occupation was, it put a lot of strain on the both of them. Maggie often didn't know where Caleb was or when he was coming home. Caleb had achieved his goal of becoming a Marine at the age of 19, 3 years before their marriage. This wasn't only an impressive achievement, but it also let the couple get a very good idea of what their life together would be like. The question, however, was how would this affect them once they were married? The two of them didn't go overboard with their wedding plans as they preferred to keep it small and more focused on their beliefs. They did face a problem, however. All the photographers they contacted were already booked. They started to get worried as this was the only thing that would be missing from their wedding. This wasn't something they were used to. The wedding day was drawing closer and closer. The photographer was still something unattainable. Then a miracle happened. One of their friends suggested a popular photographer named Dwayne Schmidt. The couple knew that he was in high demand due to his skill and talent. They decided to contact him, hoping that he might be available. At such short notice, however, they weren't too optimistic. Caleb and Maggie met with Schmidt a couple of weeks before the wedding. He showed them his portfolio and the couple was highly impressed with his work. They immediately decided to ask him to take photos of their wedding since he was clearly the best possible choice. They asked the dreaded question about his availability. To their great delight, he was available on their special day. They never thought this perfect photographer would change their lives forever. Finally, everything had fallen into place. The happy couple couldn't imagine the possibility of anything going wrong. About a week before their wedding, though, they received a phone call that shattered their world. The devastating news sent the couple scurrying to find a solution. Their entire wedding seemed like it was about to fall apart after that phone call. The couple had no idea how to handle the twist that life had just thrown at them. Dwayne called the couple with news that threatened to derail everything. Their perfect photographer required an emergency surgical procedure. He had to have kidney stones removed. Although his surgery was a week before the wedding, it would be quite a serious operation, and there was no assurance that he'd be well enough to take the photos of their special day. Maggie and Caleb decided that they would just stay the course and let nothing derail them. The couple refused to stop having faith. They'd faced greater hardships before, such as whenever Caleb was away. This was just one more obstacle they knew their faith could help them overcome. So despite how desperate things seemed, the couple simply put their faith in God. Whether it was the power of prayer or the progress of modern medicine, the couple was ecstatic to hear the news that Dwayne's surgery had been a success and that he was recuperating. There was still about a week before the wedding for him to heal, so the couple tried to find something to distract themselves. They focused on everything which was still going well and put their problems into perspective. A few days before the wedding, Caleb called a photographer. He was anxious and worried when he called, but he wasn't prepared for what he told Caleb. Dwayne had completely healed in time for their wedding. As stressful as it had been, everything was back on track for their big day. The couple's prayers seemed to have given them their own miracle. Caleb had a reputation for upholding tradition in all aspects of his life, but on his big wedding day, he wanted things to be a bit different. He had something particular in mind for their photographer, and when he told him his idea, he was thrilled about it. Caleb reached out to the photographer and he requested that they do some very special photos of the couple before the ceremony. Dwayne was shocked. He was excited that the couple was breaking tradition and wanted to do something unique and unusual. This would be an opportunity to break away from the traditional wedding photos and showcase his love of art and composition. When the big day finally came, Dwayne was happily snapping away, capturing all the special moments at the wedding. He was taking all kinds of photos for the couple and their family, documenting them as they got ready for the most important day of their lives, and just like Caleb requested, the photographer knew that he would be entering the same room that Maggie was in at some point. He was well prepared for this moment, but he still wasn't sure what would happen. Nevertheless, he was curious and excited to witness the outcome of all the photos. Dwayne was with the bride and her bridesmaids, and the room was full of excited women who were ready, getting dolled up for the day. Dwayne was snapping photos throughout the whole process, documenting every detail as they had their makeup and hair done, all while anticipating the entrance of Caleb. When it was finally time, Dwayne was ready. Caleb could be seen through the lens entering through a door at the back of the room. Dwayne could already tell from his body language that Caleb was very nervous about the moment. Dwayne made sure to take photos. Maggie was around the corner, completely unaware that Caleb was even there. The rest of the women in the room saw Caleb enter, and then there was an air of excitement and anticipation in the room as they all waited with bated breath. Caleb, with his eyes down, was becoming more and more nervous as he walked closer and closer to Maggie. They had both waited for this moment for such a long time, and now was finally upon him. He could only imagine what his beautiful soon-to-be wife looked like behind the wall. It was a moment he'll never forget. Caleb finally made it to the set of stairs near the far wall. A door beside the stairs was ajar, and Maggie was just waiting on the other side of it. She'd been waiting for him all along, and now they finally had reached their moment. It was now or never. Dwayne was entranced as he snapped away, focusing on Caleb as he approached the stairway and leaned with his back against the wall. The door slowly opened and Caleb could hardly contain himself. Maggie slowly leaned out of the doorway, careful not to look at her future husband. The couple didn't look at one another as they promised that they would still keep up with some classic traditions. They didn't want to be connected before they'd spoken their vows in front of their loved ones, friends, and family. With that, Caleb reached out his arm from around the doorway and blindly searched for Maggie's hand with his. She responded, meeting Caleb in the doorway. At that moment, the couple grasped hands and connected. Then, just as their hands met, they immediately broke down. It was a very emotional moment, one that Dwayne was determined to capture forever. Caleb and Maggie were completely absorbed with one another in their own private moment. Only they existed to each other. But the rest of the room couldn't help but feel some of the magic as well. All of the women in the room were totally emotional watching the couple find each other's hands in the doorway. Dwayne was busy at this moment. He didn't just want to capture the bride and groom, but he wanted to capture the others' reactions as well. It was such a beautiful moment, and it wasn't even close to being over yet. The couple was emotional, but they wanted to make sure that they said everything they wanted to say at this moment. Tears rolled down Caleb and Maggie's cheeks as they decided to say a prayer. With trembling voices, hands firmly locked together, they asked God to bless their marriage. It was an overwhelming moment for everyone who witnessed it. Both Caleb and Maggie asked for the support and guidance they were seeking, and they asked that God go with them with their marriage until the end. They wanted to share their lives together according to the will of God. Caleb and Maggie had planned to say their prayers together, but Maggie wasn't prepared for what would happen next. After the prayer together, Caleb said something that he'd prepared carefully and on his own. Caleb's words came as a surprise to Maggie, and she was totally shocked. In front of all the people watching, Caleb built up the courage to speak out about his true feelings and his faith in God. But when he began to speak, Maggie just listened to him silently from behind the door, soaking up every unforgettable word that he said, but she wasn't the only one. Everyone in the room was totally silent on tenterhooks. They wanted to make sure that Maggie had heard every word that Caleb said, and right before the ceremony began and with teary eyes, Caleb spoke. With shaking hands, Caleb asked God to bless his beautiful bride-to-be and to also bless his amazing future family. Caleb believed that it was right to ask for this before they were married, and Maggie was completely touched by all of this. She covered her face with her hands and knew that she'd made the right decision. The couple never suspected that the moment would be shared by so many. The beautiful moment had been documented, and family and friends who hadn't seen the moment in person were able to witness the whole thing. It was a great way for the couple to be able to share their moment with everyone who hadn't been able to make it to their wedding. Most of all, they were thankful for Dwayne being there to capture the moment. Suddenly, more and more people started to ask them if they could see the touching photograph after they'd heard about it. Of course, Maggie and Caleb were happy to share it with all of their guests. Dwayne had taken one picture in particular that he was very excited about. It happened while the couple was holding hands around the corner. Maggie and Caleb both bared their souls in that instant, and Dwayne felt privileged to have witnessed it. The photo was so beautiful and heartfelt, and Dwayne was getting so many compliments from Caleb and Maggie's family that he decided to post it on his Facebook page. In all his days of being a photographer, Dwayne had never experienced such a response from one photo. Everyone responded very positively to the story of Caleb and Maggie. They loved what the photo stood for, and they loved that Dwayne was able to capture such raw emotion in the couple. Dwayne felt as though people could not only see it, but feel the emotions that the couple was feeling when they looked at the photo. It captured the couple's commitment to each other and to their faith in a very genuine way. He was beyond proud and honored, and to his surprise, the views on social media kept growing, and people continued to support his talent and react to the amazing story. At the end of the big day, the couple couldn't have been happier with how everything turned out. Although it was totally overwhelming at times, all they could think about was how the fact they were now together forever. With that in mind, Caleb and Maggie were very thankful to their guests and to Dwayne in particular. Their day wouldn't have been nearly as amazing without being able to share it with these special people, and when they look at the moment that Dwayne captured so beautifully, they know that they will never forget the promises they made that day. After Dwayne posted the photo of Maggie and Caleb, the demand for his work increased tenfold. So many people had shared the sweet photo that soon more and more couples were exposed to his work. With his newfound fame, Dwayne began to receive hundreds of requests from couples who were looking for an exceptional wedding photographer. Things got so wild that Dwayne had to turn down 16 weddings in one summer because of one amazing photo that had been shared hundreds of times. At the end of the day, Dwayne couldn't help but have his own bit of faith. And the photo that Dwayne took is still gaining attention, and its effect shows no signs of slowing anytime soon. The photo was featured on the cover of I Do, and the Facebook post that Dwayne has made has gotten over 100 shares and more than 900 likes, loves, and teary-eyed emotions. The original photo of Maggie and Caleb's heartfelt moment that Dwayne posted has since garnered more than 61,000 likes, 9,000 shares, and more than 3,000 comments. People of all walks of life seem to be coming across the photo, and it never fails to stir the deepest emotions. After their wedding took place, Caleb and Maggie assumed that they would be leading a normal life. However, after their special photo began to go viral, things changed drastically. They had attracted an enormous amount of attention and fans. The couple, famous overnight, was asked to go with Dwayne on a lot of talk show appearances, and they took part in all kinds of interviews discussing their faith, love, and their wedding day. It was odd to the couple, who were simply thrilled that they were able to help Dwayne's business, all because of a twist of fate that brought the photographer into their lives. But that wasn't all that happened at the wedding. You see, Caleb had been saving up every penny he had. Working long hours leading up to the big day, he was saving for something extra special that he could do for his future bride, even more than a big beautiful ceremony. Maggie had been planning the ceremony, and he wanted to do something special for her that she would never forget. He leaned over with what Maggie was thought to be an innocent kiss on the cheek and whispered to her, "I have a surprise for you. We're going to Fiji right after the vows are over with." He leaned back as if he didn't just drop a bomb on her insides. 10 seconds went by where Maggie just kneeled at the altar stunned. Then all of a sudden, overcome with emotion and shock, she passed out. Caleb couldn't believe it. His bride, where he'd done so much planning and preparation for, just passed out at the altar. Well, this story has a happy ending after all, because after the videographer stopped filming, Maggie shortly after. In 2015, Samantha Karish and Taylor Sinclair finally tied the knot after a turbulent engagement. Following their dream ceremony, they made their way to the dance floor for their first dance. As the newlyweds started to move, the band stopped playing and announced that there was a wedding crasher. The bride, as well as the crowd, looked on in silence. She'd wanted her special day to be everything she'd ever dreamed of and more. What could she possibly have done to deserve this? She clutched her stomach and widened her eyes in disbelief, watching as it all unfolded. Parrish met Sinclair at a baseball game as he was playing for minor league side Visalia Rawhide. She'd been watching him carefully from the stands, and when his eyes fell on her, he knew he just had to get her number. After just 2 dates, he announced that he had to leave town for the new baseball season, and Parrish had been devastated. She thought that everything was going so well, but could their new love go long distance? And would it withstand such a long time apart? Only time would tell. They dated long distance until Sinclair finally relocated to California to be with Parrish. The young lovers dated happily for 4 years until Sinclair finally proposed in 2014 to the love of his life while they were on their vacation in Cancun, Mexico. Of course, Parrish accepted and immediately started to plan her fairy tale wedding. Although being apart had been tough, the couple was now stronger than ever, and they were excited to start a new chapter in their lives. "It's just made us even stronger," Parrish says, but they never suspected that something sinister lay ahead right in their near future. As soon as the couple arrived home, they excitedly threw themselves into wedding planning. They wanted to have the wedding back where it all began, no, not on a baseball field, but rather in beautiful Cancun where Taylor had proposed. It was to be a destination wedding, but unfortunately for the couple, their fairy tale wedding wasn't meant to be. They had big dreams of being surrounded by all their family and friends while they said their nuptials, but overnight tragedy struck. One day they received some devastating news that would change their lives forever. The day after the couple returned from a wedding planning trip to Mexico in October 2014, Parrish got some disappointing news. But not everything had been easy for the couple. Leading up to the wedding, tragedy struck suddenly. As Samantha gleefully told her mother of all the wedding plans, she felt something was amiss. Her mother was very quiet, not at all her usual self, and Samantha's heart sank when her mother told her multiple sclerosis had worsened. She would never travel again, and she wouldn't be able to travel to her daughter's wedding. They immediately changed their wedding destination idea and instead started planning a ceremony local in California. Taylor immediately said, "If that's the case, we're abandoning that idea," Samantha recalled. They began to outline new plans with a wedding in San Diego so as to be closer to her mother. Samantha's hope restored that her mother would be at her wedding as she'd always dreamed about, and everything was back on track, but catastrophe wasn't done with them yet. After a month looking at venues, the couple was dealt yet another challenge. Parrish's mother's health continued to decline, and that's when she learned that she had colon cancer. She went for a battery of tests and x-rays, but her doctor said the prognosis didn't look good. With her mom's health hanging in the wind, Parrish and Sinclair abandoned their wedding plans once again. Parrish resolved to roll with the punches and deal with whatever life threw at her as best she could. She knew exactly what she had to do, even if it meant she wouldn't see her beloved Sinclair as often as she would have liked. She relocated from their home in Redondo Beach, California to Simi Valley, California so that she could care for her mother. This meant she only saw her fiancé on weekends. It was during this desperate time that the bride-to-be searched online for ideas on how to throw a cheap wedding. During this challenging time of uncertainty, Parrish tried to hold on to her idle wedding plans. Even a courthouse or backyard wedding crossed her mind. She wanted to spend her life with Sinclair but didn't have time to plan much. None of the ideas were exceptional, however. She stumbled across something that would change her life forever. Parrish found an online competition and showed her friends. They later told her that they'd all nominated her for the Win a Dream wedding competition. Everything would be completely taken care of, the food, venue, everything including the wedding expenses. She was relieved that she would be able to continue helping her mother, but little did she know that another huge obstacle was coming. Every couple that enters the competition stands a chance of receiving their entire ceremony paid for by the wedding website The Knot. The only catch is that every detail of the wedding would be voted on by members of the American public. With a snowball effect, the votes for them came in, bringing her closer to her dream wedding. She even received an email from a woman in Australia saying that she was voting for the couple. There was one twist. If she did win the competition, would the terms and conditions be worth a free wedding? While many brides would find relinquishing control of their wedding an unthinkable thing, Parrish thought that it sounded perfect. If she won, it would take so much pressure off her and she could focus on what was really important, her mother's health. Finally, as one of 6 finalists from thousands of applicants, Samantha got the news that she'd won the competition. "We've always said the most important wedding detail is each other and everything else will fall into place." With all the other weird things that would be part of the wedding, she knew he would be enough. The couple would be able to concentrate on their family while the public took care of planning their wedding. The couple only really had to show up to say "I do." Almost every aspect of their nuptials had been voted for online, so Parrish and Sinclair felt super prepared for their big day. There was still one surprise in store, their first dance as husband and wife. Sam and Taylor chose the country song "Love You Like That" by Canaan Smith for their first dance number. This was the song that reminded them of their love for each other and made them smile when they were apart. As the melody of the song began, they started dancing and something truly incredible had occurred. The wedding band abruptly cut out before the song had even begun, and one of the musicians declared, "You know what? We have a better idea," to the couple over the microphone. The couple was confused. Had something gone wrong? Then they heard, "Sam and Taylor, we have a special guest who's here to sing you your first dance song." Samantha's heart stopped beating as she wondered what was happening. The crowd fell absolutely silent as they waited for what would happen next. What was going on? Then they saw him and couldn't believe their eyes. Samantha slowly spun around and spotted Kanan Smith himself walking towards them towards the dance floor. The Knot had asked the country singer to fly out to California to sing a live version of their favorite song. The newlyweds were frozen in disbelief, and in that moment of sheer joy, Samantha hugged the singer as he came to take the stage and begin his special performance Love You Like That just for them. Being a newlywed himself, Kanan Smith couldn't turn down the idea of giving the couple the surprise of a lifetime. But that wasn't the only surprise they received that day.